If you told me 5 years ago that my friend was going to do an Ironman, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been, you're crazy, not because I don't believe she could, but because I don't believe she'd ever want to, because she doesn't love to do activities like that. And so it was so cool to see someone shift their whole entire perspective and do something that they told themselves, I am never going to do that and I never want to do that, to then seeing her cross the finish line and to see how proud she was of herself and to see her parents there and her grandma and to be like, that was so cool. I cannot believe I just did that. Welcome to the Blue Rose Podcast. I'm your host, Becca Blue Rose, a runner, storyteller, and believer in creating a life that feels like your own. Some weeks it's just you and me, and other weeks I'm joined by women who are chasing their own version of a bold, unapologetic life. Together we explore what it really means to take risks and trust your own path. Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Super glad that you guys are here today. Super excited to get into Ironman Boulder race recap. For those of you who do not know, I just finished an Ironman, and this week I've just been kind of sleeping and recovering. I went on 2 pretty big runs with a friend, and then I realized, wow, mentally I am not ready to train. And so you know what that means? That means I'm not ready to train and to give myself a break. And so I've been trying to sleep and eat and relax and read and just get ready, because next week I'm leaving for a pretty exciting trip that I will share more about later. But before I get into my Ironman recap, this morning I went running with a girl and she was like, oh, I saw you did an Ironman, because it was on my Strava. And I had asked her what she was training for, because I had been seeing that she was running and biking a lot. And she was kind of like, oh, I have like a mix of different goals, but I had been thinking about doing an Ironman. And then I saw that you did an Ironman. And then she was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I want to do an Ironman now. And it's so interesting because, sometimes when we pick race goals or we pick things that we want to do or accomplish, most of the time we are just thinking about ourselves. We're not doing them to please other people. We're not really thinking about other people in our minds when we make those choices, which is positive because you're doing the things that you want to do for your why and your reasons. But when I heard her say that, I was like, oh, like people seeing other people who are like them do things that maybe they didn't know that they could do, or maybe they just hadn't committed to yet, makes them believe that they can do it, or excites them to then commit to doing it. And that just got me really excited, because sometimes after a race or an event, I'm like, why am I doing this? Right? Like, why do I spend hours and hours of my week training and preparing for this one day, this one event to essentially challenge my fitness and do hard things? Right? Like, why do I do those things? And the simple answer is challenging myself, proving to myself that I can do hard things. But when you look at it from like a broader perspective, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, why? And then you get someone like my friend who said that to me, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's also why I do this, because I don't think I am special, and I don't think that I have anything that other people don't. I think that if you want to achieve something or accomplish something, you can do it, but it really inspires you and makes you believe that you can do it when you see someone like you doing it. And when we choose to do hard things, we aren't just changing ourselves in the process, but we are giving everyone else around us, everyone else in our circles, the permission to expand their own boundaries and to see what they are capable of. And I think that's the main reason why I do it, right? It's why this podcast is so special to me, because it just shares so many stories about women doing things that maybe you hadn't even thought of doing. So maybe you hadn't even thought of doing an Ironman, and then you saw that I did one, and then you're like, oh my God, I want to do an Ironman. So how did I decide to do an Ironman? I don't completely remember, but I do know that it's been something that's been on my mind for quite a few years now, where I want to do one, and then I'm kind of like, I want to do a trail race instead. So in 2024, at the end of the year, I decided in 2025, I'm going to do an Ironman. And I actually started winter training. And then I said, no. I said, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to train for an Ironman in the middle of winter. I just don't want to do it. And I just felt like with everything going on in life at that time, I could not handle doing an Ironman, and I could not handle the training because let me tell you, training for 3 sports is something else, and it is a full-time job. And so at the time, I just had too much on my plate. I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, and I was like, "No." And I definitely felt like a failure when I changed my mind and said, "You know what? No, I'm not gonna do this," because it felt like I had picked this big audacious goal and I was giving up on it before I was even like a quarter of the way into the goal. Like I was like maybe a month into the goal and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I don't want to do it. And now I do think that it's okay to change your mind and change your goals, but I think we can all relate to saying that we want to do something and setting ourselves up to do it and then we're actually doing it and we're like, wow, I really don't want to do this. And I didn't know at the time whether or not that was like, Becca, you're just not a triathlete and you don't want to be and you don't want to train for this, or if it was like, this is just not the season, this is just not the right time for me. And so fast forward, it ended up just being, you know what, this isn't the right season for me and this isn't the right time and that's okay. And I just want to state that again, like that is okay. If you're someone listening to this and you're like, I just pivoted and I changed my goal and I changed my mind and I didn't want to do this and I started this thing and then I completely was like, absolutely not. Even if it's just like, I don't want to do this, that's okay. But also giving yourself the time and grace to figure out whether or not it's just like a never for me thing or just not for me right now is important to allow yourself to do. And I'm really grateful that I did because how I decided to do an Ironman this year was this is the like, I don't really remember part of like my friend and I were kind of going back and forth. We were talking about it. She had just run her first marathon. We kind of had talked about it in passing, like you do, like, oh yeah, like what if we did an Ironman? And they're like, oh yeah, what if we did an Ironman? And then I sent her a text and I literally have my text up right now and it says, so are you set on Ironman Boulder? Like, do you want to do Ironman Boulder? And then she said, I'm down. Maybe it'll get my butt in gear to swim because my friend did not know how to swim. And then a few days later, she texted me and said, all right, I think I'm committed. I just bought a book for training for it. And then I was committed. So the second that my friend told me that she was committed and she wanted to do it, I was like, well, I can't back out now because I'm the one that texted her and asked her like, hey, are we doing this thing? And so why this was so special, like for me, I was so grateful that I waited to do an Ironman with my friend versus doing it by myself because every race I have done has kind of been a solo journey. And this was really exciting because neither of us had done an Ironman. And it was even more exciting for me because my friend had to get herself swim lessons. She did not know how to swim before we did this Ironman. Like she learned how to swim like 6 months ago and maybe bought a bike around that same time and also did not know how to bike. So where I got my like motivation and my energy for this race was simply seeing my friend do something that she did not think that she could do. She did something that she didn't know if she could do. She pushed herself. She trained for this race. And we both learned that, yeah, training for an Ironman is a ridiculous amount of work and commitment. Like you're training not only for one sport, but 3 sports. And it kind of gets overwhelming to be like, well, every single day you have 3 options of what you could do. And most of the time you need to pick at least 2. And it's a lot. So fast forward to race day. We've both trained. I went to Colorado and we did an Ironman little training camp together. We did Boulder. And we had both been training for like 6 months. You know, we literally know nothing. Like there is so much that goes into an Ironman that I could not have even comprehended until I actually did an Ironman, between having to go and do athlete check-in and get a wristband that you're not allowed to take off for the entire weekend, to dropping your bike off at transition with all your race nutrition and your running gear. And then there's rules about whether or not you're allowed to swim before the race. And then, you know, anyone that's not doing the race isn't allowed in the transition area. And there's certain rules of like, you have to stay 12 feet behind someone. When you're biking and you're not allowed to draft and they do rolling starts on the swims, you can't take your bike helmet off before you mount your bike in the bike transition. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there are so many rules and I don't know any of them. And luckily we kind of rationalized that we wouldn't be going fast enough to like make those rules really count. We were like, who's going to be paying attention to us? We'll be lucky if we see a referee kind of thing. So race day came around and we were so nervous, and the swim started out a tad rough. Like, it was windy. It picked up like right as we got in the water. And so the whole time in the swim, I was like trying not to choke on water and just like lifting my head up so high so I could actually breathe and see where I was going. And I was like just getting absolutely swam over by these large men. And I was like, can you guys just not, like, we're obviously not winning this race because we're not in the front. So like, can we just calm down? And I get wanting to go for your PR, but I'm also like, can we not drown each other? So that was kind of terrifying for the swim. And I have to say, I was just kind of like, get through it. And that felt quite difficult. And then actually I was most humbled by the transitions. Getting into a running mode after you are swimming, like running from the swim transition to the bike transition, was actually very hard. And I had to like sit down because I was so winded. And then it takes like a bit, like by the time you're into the swim, it's like, oh, it's time to bike. And then by the time you're into the bike, it's like, okay, it's time to run. And then when I was doing the bike to run transition, I have never experienced this before, but I just like cramped so bad and I had to walk like the first 2 miles, and I was like, I'm going to DNF this race. Like, I don't think I'm going to finish because my rib cage, I felt like my lungs were going to collapse. I was like, oh my God, I literally can't breathe. And I was hyperventilating. And then my boyfriend was out there and he was like, it's okay. Like, this happens. It's going to go away. And little did I know after that, he just said that and he was like, I didn't actually know, but sometimes you just need to hear that. And like, sometimes you do just need to hear that things are going to be okay from someone else, because when you're in that and you're in the pain cave, like sometimes you can't rationalize that this will be over soon. So sometimes you kind of just need someone else to tell you, like, don't worry, it's going to get better. It'll be over soon. You're going to be fine. Surely enough, I started running again. It was great. I finished the race. And like every race, you are going to go through hard times. And something that I've learned to do is just like expect the hard. This is what we came here for. And if you expect it to be easy, you're just tricking yourself, because no matter what you do when you are challenging yourself and pushing yourself, it is going to feel hard. And it is going to feel like you can't continue at certain points, but pushing through that just makes you so much stronger. And for me, the thing that helps me get through challenges like that is actually something that Rachel Entrekin says. And if you guys don't know who Rachel Entrekin is, feel free to look her up. She's an amazing trail runner. And she says, if it's a problem in 20 minutes, then I'll think about it. And that is really working for me right now, because on the bike, I kind of had some stomach issues and I felt like I was drinking too much water, but not sweating enough because it wasn't super hot. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm only going to have gels. And if it's a problem in 20 minutes, then I'll really think about it. Right? Same with my lungs. I was like, okay, you're going to go for 20 more minutes. And if it's a problem in 20 minutes, then you'll think about doing something about it. My hip was also hurting on the bike. And then I was like, okay, if it's a problem in 20 minutes, I'll think about it. And I didn't even think about it again because it went away. And most times it will go away. And so that's been a really cool thing for me to be able to learn. And then, my favorite part of this race, yes, was challenging myself, and yes, was seeing that I can do hard things. But I had two favorite parts of this race. One was being at the finish line when my friend finished, because it was so awesome to see her stoke when she crossed that finish line and to be like, man, this girl is incredible. She just did one of the hardest things she's ever done. And to give you guys perspective on my friend too, she was a goalie for soccer and she was a sprinter for track. She never wanted to run a marathon in her life. And last year she ran a marathon. Like, she was always like, I am never running. I don't like running. Never going to do it. If you told me 5 years ago that my friend was going to do an Ironman, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been like, you're crazy. She is never going to do an Ironman. Not because I don't believe she could, but because I don't believe she'd ever want to, because she doesn't love to do cardio activities like that. And so it was so cool to see someone shift their whole entire perspective and do something that they told themselves, I am never going to do that and I never want to do that, to then seeing her cross the finish line and to see how proud she was of herself and to see her parents there and her grandma and to be like, that was so cool. I cannot believe I just did that. And to just let that sink in for a second, because there's nothing like doing something for the first time and feeling so proud and encouraged and inspired, and to just see all the other people around too. That was another part that was also amazing, is like from the time we got there on Thursday evening to do a shakeout to the time we left on Saturday afternoon, I felt like I was constantly running into women that were like, this is my first Ironman, and like asking questions, and they were all super nervous. And it was just amazing to realize you will never be the only person doing something. You will never be the only person on the start line that it's their first time. I stood next to a girl during the swim, and it was her first Ironman as well. And there was a girl behind me, first Ironman. And to just see all these women being like, this is my first Ironman. And you know what's even cooler about that is that Ironmans are so male dominated. I think there was like, I want to say 1,200 to 1,500 people in this race, and only 500 of them were women. So over 2/3 of the field were men. And then you have 500 women. And out of them, there's got to be so many that are doing their first Ironman and are doing something hard and have a reason for being there and a why for why they're challenging themselves and why they thought that this was a good idea. And so I absolutely love that. My second reason that I loved this Ironman so much was because, so if you guys don't know this, which you probably don't because I don't really talk about my boyfriend very much, but he lives and breathes Ironmans. Like, he is trying to qualify for Kona. He has been doing Ironmans for about 6 or 7 years now. And, he had no interest, I guess, in me doing an Ironman. Like, it was never like I'm doing this because I have a boyfriend that does Ironmans. It was because I wanted to do this with my friend, and it's something I've always wanted to do. He could really care less. But the coolest part about this was that I personally did not have a whole lot of interest in doing Ironmans. And before I did the Ironman, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of lost some of my pizzazz for the Ironman. I was really starting to be like, it's trail running season. I want to trail run. Why am I in the pool swimming? Why am I riding my bike? I just want to be running. I was running on flat ground. I want to be running in the mountains. I was kind of giving up on the whole Ironman thing, and I was like doing more trail running, really was kind of overtraining. And I'm so glad that I stuck it out and did the Ironman. It gave me a newfound respect for not only my partner, but for people that do Ironmans, because of everything I mentioned of like, there's so much that goes into it that you don't know. And it is hard. It is so hard. It's hard in a way that you wouldn't know unless you did it. And there's so much that goes into it, and so many rules and so many things that you don't know until you do it. And that was such a cool experience for me, because I was like, oh, I can ask better questions now. I actually get what he's going through when he's doing these transitions and when he's switching sports. And I actually get what the time commitment is on training for an Ironman. And I'm only doing a half and he's doing a full. Like, it was so cool. And that just got me thinking about how unique of an opportunity it is to not only do things that your partner is into, but your friends are into, and purely out of like a let me understand you better perspective. Because going into this Ironman, like, that was not a perspective I felt like I was going to gain or could have even thought about gaining. But it made me think about, maybe not having. And I'm not saying these things should take place of your main priorities and your main goals, but how cool is it to step into someone in your life's shoes, someone that you love, someone that you care about, and to take a really, really close look and understand, yeah, what does this mean to me? Why is this hard? What goes into this? What is the whole picture? And really experience that, and then be like, come out on the other side and be like, wow, I understand you in a way that I don't think I did before. And I understand your hobby in a way that I didn't before. And how cool is that to just take the time to allow yourself to gain that perspective? Because it's not a perspective we often get easily, and as people, we are innately selfish and we think about ourselves and we think about our goals. But how cool is it to then think about other people and their goals and what lights them up, and to step into their world, even if you know nothing about it, but to just be like, I'm just going to do this for fun. But I think younger Becca would have been kind of like, if I don't want to do that, I'm not going to do that. And there is a lot of like empowerment for not doing things you don't want to do, and like owning that and just being like, hey, that's not for me. And I love that for you. But I think part of me was always like, well, don't do things to please other people and don't do things like for other people if you don't want to do them. But it's like, yeah, if you have a friend or a partner or someone in your life that you're like, I want to do this for them to experience what they experience, even if it's not going to be something I do all the time. Like, how cool is it to get that experience kind of thing? And so those were kind of my two main takeaways from that experience, and just the community piece and seeing my friend and seeing my partner and everyone out there it was just really, really cool. So overall, my Ironman experience was pretty incredible. And so for those of you listening that are one, on the show, we talk a lot about getting into new things, trying new things. And so, like anything else, I'm going to offer you two quick pieces of advice if you want to start Ironman training. And one is, do not compare yourself to anyone else on your journey. Because I feel like I need to say again that I grew up swimming, and I've had a bike for 3 years, and I've been doing ultras for 3 years. And my friend got into this. She had never swam. She needed swim lessons. She needed to get a bike, and she'd only run one marathon. Those are very different journeys, important journeys, because you can't compare those two journeys. You can't compare those finish times. You can't compare where we are at the start lines. It's just so different, and everyone has a story on where they came from, why they're doing this race. And if you let your time and the fact that you don't know what you're doing count you out, that's just a shame, because everyone is on a different journey and people are always happy to answer questions, even if they're further along in the journey. But you have to start the journey in order to actually get somewhere on the path, right? Like, you can't just count yourself out. So I would say, don't count yourself out. Don't compare yourself. Give yourself a shot and count on you and bet on you to be able to do things in the way that you think that they should be done. Two is, drink early and eat often. Regardless of who you are, regardless of what you're trying to get into, nutrition and hydration are the two things that can make or break your race. And learning those things early is so important to the journey, because it'll help you train better, it'll help you recover better, and it'll help you race better. So if you can focus on one thing, I would focus on your nutrition plan, because that is something that has really helped me. And I guess I'm going to give you another piece of advice. So number 3 is that I did not commit to an Ironman until I had a friend that wanted to do it with me. I think that while that is okay sometimes, other times, I just want to remind you that you are enough to start the journey on your own, and you will meet people along the way. You do not have to have a friend. Yes, it can make it a more impactful experience, but don't wait to do the things that you want to do just because you don't have someone yet who wants to do them with you. I imagine you will meet someone along your way that will maybe become a friend in the process and will also want to do an Ironman or will join you or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an Ironman, but don't wait for other people to join you in order for you to start. You are enough to start your journey on your own, and you will be surprised where a solo journey can take you. And also, don't be afraid to invite your community to join you, because sometimes I don't invite people and I wouldn't know that someone wanted to do it with me because I didn't invite them. So just invite your friends. And I would say that if you've been sitting on something, if you've been like, I don't want to commit, or I don't know if I want to do this, I would say this is your sign. This is your sign to go do the thing, to sign up for the race, to start the class, to do whatever it is you want to do. This is your sign to take one step in the direction of whatever dream you have on your mind, and to believe that if I can do it, you can do it. And if my friend can do it, you can do it, because we are just two gals in our 20s out here trying to challenge ourselves and push ourselves to do things that we didn't think we can do. And I truly believe that everyone has that muscle in them. You just have to exercise it. So guys, with that, I just want to say that the reality of doing things that you didn't think you could do is that it inspires other people. And it inspires you to keep choosing big, audacious goals. It proves to you that you can do anything that you set your mind to, and you just have to take the first step. So with that, guys, go take that first step. And thanks for listening to my Ironman recap. I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Blue Rose Podcast. If you love this episode, please hit follow, leave a review, or send it to a friend who's building their own bold life. Keep trusting yourself, and I'll see you next week.